this video, I want to show you how to do a really stretchy long tail cast on that'll work on these Druchunas in summer socks and the matching mittens because it has an entrelac cuff and then it changes to color work. The cuff actually has only half the number of stitches that the rest of the knitting has because this is on a diagonal. Entrelacs knit on diagonals, and so you have your gauge really weird. And so here we might have 70 stitches, here we would only have 35. That's just an example. If you look really closely at my samples, you can see how loose the cast on is and how much space there is in each of those stitches. And this is the one that's made with the kit from the Yarn Fairies and the Pixies yarn. And this is the one that's made with the Texarena yarn. It's harder to see because it's a little bit fuzzier yarn, but I have that really loose cast on here as well. So I'm going to show you how to do that, and if you have trouble with that, because some people have trouble getting a really loose cast on, I'm going to give you a second option. So here's my cast on sample, and you see how I can stretch my stitches way apart there? So I'm just doing my regular long tail cast on. So I'm going to hold the yarn and needles the way I do. If you do it differently, it doesn't matter. How you hold the yarn and needles isn't important. What I'm going to show you is how to stretch the stitches apart. So before I cast on each stitch, I pull the one that's finished back behind the point of the needle. Then I make the next stitch on the point of the needle, and then I pull it back. So I'm making my stitches far apart and then pulling them together. And when I pull it back, notice I'm not pulling on my yarn and tightening that. I'm just moving that stitch. So that extra yarn here between the stitches is staying there. And that's what gives me that ability to have this stretched out. So I'm pushing my stitch behind the point of the needle and making the next one on the tip of the needle. So I'm adding space between them as I go. So you can practice that and see if you can get a really loose cast on, because you definitely don't want the top edge of a sock binding on your leg. If you can't do that, the other option is to cast on twice as many stitches as you need and then do a row of knit two together around. And that works perfectly fine as well. It'll give you one extra row of the cast on color before you start the entrelac, but that is way better than having it too tight at the top of the sock.